What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 432 of Hashtag AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, March 9, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below on the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Quick cheap plug here. Be sure to check out my exclusive video interview with NFL Hall of Famer and co-founder of Orange Comet, the company. NFL Hall of Famer, like I said, Kurt Warner, the star of American Underdog, a movie that came out a couple of months ago on his life and career in the NFL. Talking all about his new locker room virtual experience along with his fellow co-founder of the Orange Comic Company, Dave Broom. He's also the mastermind behind the Biggest Loser TV show from the last 20 years. Yeah, it's that guy. So we got him on the phone and Kurt Warner over video that went up on Monday. I know that's not wrestling related at all, but if you're a football fan, you'll probably enjoy it. So check that out when you can. We broke the news for Bleacher Report last week. So without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with No L from Facebook. Their first question was, where would you rank The Batman 2022 in the best Batman movie list? Well, I'm no expert on Batman movies, just because I've only seen, I think, the Christopher Nolan movies and this one. So I did see this one on Saturday, really enjoyed it. I wouldn't put it above Dark Knight. I might put it above Dark Knight Rises. I haven't seen Dark Knight Rises in a while. I think the biggest thing that hurt Dark Knight Rises, for as much as I enjoyed that movie and thoroughly loved it, I think the biggest thing working against it was the fact that it wasn't The Dark Knight. You know, The Dark Knight was such a great film that Dark Knight Rises was never going to come close. Although I really did like that movie. I would probably go for the movies that I've seen. I have not seen Batman Begins, actually. I said I saw all the Christopher Nolan movies. That's actually not true. I don't think I've ever seen, maybe I've seen like 5 minutes of Batman Begins, but I've seen all of Dark Knight like a million times. I saw it when it came out in theaters 14 years ago. Same thing with Dark Knight Rises in this one. So of the three that I've seen, I didn't see the George Clooney ones or who else did? Didn't Michael Keaton play Batman at one point? I mean, that sounds like a dumb question. I'm pretty sure he did, but are they coming out with something else Batman related with him in it? I thought he might have been in this one, but obviously he wasn't. I don't follow the DC Batman stuff too closely. But I would go Dark Knight, Batman 2022, and then Dark Knight Rises. Like I said, didn't see Batman Begins, didn't see any of the earlier films. I've actually seen quite a few of the original Superman films, like 1 through 3, 1 through 4. My dad would rent them from like the local library or like our local, like one of those Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video, whatever the hell it was called, type places when I was a kid. I remember watching those. I was never the biggest Batman person, although I've seen like animated versions of Batman. My uncle, who's a big DC guy, actually got me one of the Batman shows on DVD, one of the animated Batman shows from like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago or whatever. But like I said, though, I actually really enjoyed Batman. I saw it on Saturday, and I'm glad I did. I had like a free Saturday of like nothing much going on. I know Impact had a pay-per-view that night, and I know WWE had their MSG show on Saturday, and I'm so glad I did not go to that show. Because usually whenever WWE or a wrestling company like that comes to town, I'm like, I got to go. Like, I got to be there. And I went to their last MSG show the day after Christmas, but I'm like, you know, with all the other stuff I'm planning on going forward, and the other stuff I've already been to this year, like so far this year I've been to 2 indie shows. I went to a Dynamite, I went to a SmackDown taping at Mohegan Sun at the beginning of the year. All those shows were great, especially since this was a house show. I know Brock was going to be on at Ronda. I never had any inclination of going, so I'm glad I didn't in retrospect. And instead I, stayed in Connecticut and went to see the Batman instead, which was a great movie. So if you haven't already seen it, and it's not like, oh, you got to be a big superhero fan or a big Marvel fan or a DC fan. You really don't. Like, I think one of the cool things about The Dark Knight that made it so great was the fact that it's just a genuinely great movie. Like, one of my favorite films I've ever seen. So, and that's why I think it was so good, because it wasn't like, oh, it's such a great Batman flick. Like, I saw The Joker, too. I don't know if that counts as, like, Batman movies. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I would have seen him in. Not the Suicide Squad, although he did make a quick cameo in that. I saw him in Justice League, which I did not like. Those aren't Batman movies, I wouldn't say, solo films. But yeah, like I was saying, though, with a movie like this, you don't have to be a big superhero fan in order to enjoy it. So anyone who asks me, family, friends, people on the internet, definitely go see it. I think it's well recommended. Noel's second question from Facebook: who should challenge Hangman for the AEW World Championship next? Should it be someone in AEW or another company, Impact, MLW, or maybe Ring of Honor? Now, obviously, it's got to be someone in the company. I know you could go like, a special attraction match with Kota Ibushi or Okada. I may have said that a year ago, but the biggest difference is that a year ago, we didn't have CM Punk on the roster. We didn't have Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson on the roster. We have all these top-tier talents now. Keith Lee's another one that came in. Christian debuted about a year ago. He's gone for the World Championship since then. Andrade is here now. He hasn't gone for the World Championship, nor should he. Right now, anyway. We have Malachi Black and all these other people doing great things that I think to look outside of the company when the roster is already so stacked as it is, I think would be silly. So it would have to obviously be someone on the roster. I know Sal actually asked a question about this later on. I'll answer it here. My pick for the match at Double or Nothing has always been Adam Page and MJF. I think I said from the moment, and I'm not alone here, I think I said from the moment that Hangman won the championship 3 or 4 months ago, back at Full Gear, that he should hold it through May at least, retain it at Revolution, regardless of who his opponent was, and he did. He should lose it to MJF at Double or Nothing. And I still feel that way. I know MJF lost at the pay-per-view, and I said in an article for Bleacher Report on Monday that the likely direction to go in would be Punk and MJF, or Punk and Page. CM Punk versus Adam Page. Just because it looks like they're going in the direction of MJF and Wardlow for Double or Nothing. If it was up to me, I know Wardlow is white hot right now. I would still hold off on that and have MJF win the championship first with help from Wardlow. And then, maybe they could break Wardlow off first, have Wardlow beat MJF, and then MJF goes on to win the championship, and then he has all these potential challengers and Punk and Wardlow and all these other people. That's possible too. I don't know. I just feel like MJF really should be the one to take the championship from Page. Punk would be great too. The problem is that it's just a babyface versus babyface dynamic, and people, if you ask me, who would they side with? Probably Punk, because he's just been doing a lot more better work than Page, although Page has had some kick-ass matches and really been working his ass off, but the booking hasn't done him any favors. So I think people would probably cheer Punk over Page, and it's not like it's this grand dream match. I'm sure it would be a great match, but I don't look at Punk and Page as this all-time classic that we need to have a Double or Nothing. I really would go MJF and Page, and MJF already owns a victory over Page, so to me it makes sense from a few years ago. I don't think they'll do that. If it's not MJF taking the title, then I think it's going to be CM Punk at Double or Nothing. I don't see him. I guess CM Punk can go on to lose to Page at Double or Nothing, but I just don't think Page needs to have this 9-12-month reign as champion. I really don't. So, I don't know. The bottom line is that regardless of who it is, whether it's Punk or MJF or someone else, maybe Malachi Black, that's possible if they can build them up enough, a little bit more between now and then. Keith Lee would be a little abrupt, but someone along those lines. It shouldn't be, listen, as cool, as an exciting idea as it is on paper, someone from Impact, like a Josh Alexander or an Alexander Hammerstone from MLW, or you said someone from Ring of Honor. Who does Ring of Honor even have? You probably didn't realize that when you wrote it, but Ring of Honor has no roster. Tony Khan acquired Ring of Honor, but all of their talent is now either free agents or elsewhere. They have Jonathan Gresham. That might be the closest thing to a Ring of Honor star. Bandito, I guess. But like everyone else is in Impact, Taven, Bennett, PCO, Kenny King, all those guys went to Impact. So anyone from Ring of Honor that was worth a damn has come to AEW. Jay Lethal, Brody King, Danhausen. Not that Danhausen would be getting a championship shot anyway, but you know what I mean. So I know there's Brian Cage who beat Adam Page about a year ago. I think that was the last time Adam Page lost on TV in a singles match was against Brian Cage, but that would be similar to the Lance Archer thing where you bring someone back we haven't seen in a while, no one gives a shit about him because he hasn't done anything of note in a long time, if ever, in AEW, so that would be kind of a filler feud. Again, don't know if a lot of people would care about that. But Chris Jericho, he's another one who has one of the few people in AEW, aside from Cage and MJF, who has a win over Page in singles competition, having beaten him to become the inaugural AEW World Champion back at All Out 2019. So that's another one where you can revisit that on TV. Jericho lost Eddie Kingston at the pay-per-view, but he's won a majority of his matches otherwise, so I don't see why not as a quick TV match. Definitely not a Double or Nothing, but that would work as a TV main event, though, between Jericho and Page in my opinion. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, their first question was, do you think Tony Khan being a booker of Ring of Honor is a bad thing, considering he's already booking AEW? I don't know if it's a bad thing, but it's definitely not ideal. Like, I think Tony Khan's booking overall in AEW is very good. I give him a lot of credit because they have such a large roster, and it seems like he's managing everything. Like, they don't have a writing team. He's booking everything himself. And in taking more power from the other EVPs, Kenny, Cody, and the Bucks, it seems like he has almost complete control of the booking. It sounds like it anyway. And if that's the case, then he's booking everything on Dynamite, on Rampage, even on the dark shows. I think he was taking pretty good care of that as far as who's facing who and who's winning and shit like that, who's being featured on those shows. That's a lot. And then to add on another promotion that doesn't really have a lot of value as far as the promotion itself goes seems like a lot. I am someone who wants to see Ring of Honor continue. I do want to see Ring of Honor carry on as a developmental brand for AEW, to see AEW featured on their shows, to have a regular television show again. Ring of Honor has had a weekly syndicated TV show since they closed down months ago, but it's all highlight videos, so I haven't been watching it, I haven't been reviewing it. I would love to see the TV show return. In what form, I don't know. But yeah, I think having a book like a weekly show for Ring of Honor, in addition to everything he already does, not just with AEW, I didn't even mention the football stuff and everything else he does in sports and etc. and everything else he does. I just feel like that would be too much, and it would be spreading himself too thin. So I wouldn't do that. I would appoint someone like a William Regal to be the booker of an AEW, or whoever was booking a Ring of, or did I say AEW? I mean, I guess AEW too, but appoint William Regal to be a head booker over at Ring of Honor, or Bryan Danielson, or Samoa Joe, or someone that was already booking Ring of Honor before the hiatus happened. Someone like a Delirious, or Joe Koff, or someone along those lines. I don't think Joe Koff's a booker, but you know what I mean. Someone that was already within the Ring of Honor system before they closed and before they sold to Tony Khan. So I guess we'll see, but I just feel like I want to see Ring of Honor carry on. He should have some booking influence, but to him to be booking like a weekly television show for this company, it just, to me, seems silly. Like, if they have occasional shows, that would at least be something. But per the report that I read this morning from, I think, Mike Johnson of PW Insider, and I could be wrong on that, it sounds like they have no fucking clue what they're doing with Ring of Honor as a promotion itself with Super Card of Honor and stuff like that. It sounds like they have no clue. And they should probably figure that out going forward. It sounds like he just wanted to close the deal quickly so he can announce it on the Dynamite before the pay-per-view and have this big reaction and people talk about it and all this other shit. That's wonderful, but I really feel like it would be beneficial if they figured out what exactly they're doing with Ring of Honor going forward as far as a promotion before they figure anything else out as far as Ring of Honor is concerned. His second question, do you think CM Punk and MJF's feud is over, or will it continue? No, I think it's over. That felt like a payoff. I know Wardlow kind of got involved, but it felt like the transition from one program to another. And that's not to say I don't want to see it revisited. I feel like Punk and MJF was consistently the best feud that AEW has done. Omega and Page would be a close second, if not number one. But the problem with Page and Omega was that they took a break there. Not their fault, but Page, his wife got pregnant and he took time off for paternity leave or whatever. So he was gone for a little while. And when they came back, they were doing the Ghostbusters bullshit, and it kind of took a little while for people to kind of get invested in the feud again. They weren't really doing a whole lot as far as getting people invested again. And they ended up having a great match, an excellent match in Full Gear. But still, I would still go with Punk and MJF as consistently the best feud in AEW so far. With that being said, I would love to see it revisited down the road for the championship, whether Punk wins the belt and MJF takes him from him, or MJF wins the championship and Punk takes it from him. That's what I've always said, and I feel like other people have said that as well, that MJF should be the one to beat Page, and then Punk, maybe not at All Out, but maybe next year or at All Out 2021 or whatever, I don't know, he beats MJF for that championship. And I mean, maybe it's the other way around because Punk just won at Revolution, so MJF has yet to beat Punk on pay-per-view, so you could tell that story too with the roles reversed. Either way, they have to revisit the feud at some point. You know what? Fuck it. Maybe you revisit that feud with the roles reversed, with Punk as the heel and MJF as a babyface. That's always possible too. Punk, we know, is a great heel, obviously. He's an excellent heel. MJF, I just feel like, at some point he will be a breakout babyface. No time soon, nor should he be. But I think at some point, maybe next year or in 2-3 years, whatever, he will be a babyface. And if Punk's still around at that point, they should go back to that feud with the roles reversed. I think that would be equally exceptional, considering the story they told with MJF looking up to Punk and all this other shit. So you could tell that story too. But yeah, for now, I do think the feud is over, and we're going to get MJF and Wardlow coming out of Revolution very likely going into Double or Nothing. His third question, do you think Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley will team up following William Regal getting them to shake hands? I do. And I think they probably should. I wasn't really entirely sold on that idea going into the pay-per-view. I just feel like AEW already has a lot of fucking tag teams and factions and all this other shit. They don't really need any more. They already have a very overbloated tag team division with teams that aren't doing jack shit right now that we barely see in the show, like Private Party, for example. I mean, they're kind of on the show, but it's like they're completely directionless and nowhere near as hot as they were 2 or 3 years ago. That being said, Danielson and Moxley, the logical direction to go in following that match at the pay-per-view would be having them tag team. And honestly, if it's me, I'd probably have them be the ones to take the belts off of Jurassic Express at Double or Nothing. Like, we almost kind of got that with Moxley and Kingston at Double or Nothing last year. I thought they should have taken the tag titles from the Bucks, and it was probably best they held off so the Lucha Bros could do it instead at All Out. But still, I think Danielson and Moxley would make a kick-ass tag team. They haven't held the tag team titles yet, and you can have Regal either mentor them or manage them or whatever. There's a lot of things you can do there, and if you throw in other people like a Garcia or Lee Moriarty, like they've said before, or Wheeler Yuta, or someone along those lines to kind of have them serve as their apprentices, that would be cool too. So, I'd be all for that, and I hope we do get to see that. I mean, if they continue to feud, I'd be fine with that. Either way, I'm very excited to see where they go. And I really hope the Regal stuff was not a one-off with like, he has history with both men, he got them back on track, and that's it. No, I would hope that he will be a regular on TV going forward, because the guy is fucking awesome. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing more of William Regal on AEW TV, and him obviously serving as a very valuable asset behind the scenes as well. I'm at Kyle Rochelle 19 from Twitter. With Becky Lynch's ribs scarred and her being in the hospital this past week, is the match with Bianca Belair in jeopardy? I mean, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like she'll be fine. If the caption that she wrote on Instagram was accurate, that her voice box was injured at Allentown, the house show on Sunday or Saturday or whatever. I think Sunday because she was at MSG on Saturday, I saw. If it's just a voice box issue, I don't know how serious that stuff is, but I think they just gave her the night off. And with the ribs being scarred, I mean, she's fine. I mean, obviously they did the whole hair whip thing. I'm sure she's had worse bumps and bruises beyond that, so I don't think that would keep her out of WrestleMania. The voice box thing I would hope would be resolved by next Monday and she'll be back. And if not next Monday, I mean, WrestleMania is not for another 3 or 4 weeks. So we got some time until the pay-per-view. I think it might be 3 weeks away from this upcoming weekend. But yeah, either way, I think they should definitely have the match, and it's not going to be in jeopardy. So it might be, and maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't sound like, from what's being reported, or not being reported rather, that the match is in any sort of jeopardy. So I wouldn't worry too much about that as of right now. Kyle's second question: given the fact that Sasha Banks was in the main event last year and Rhea Ripley won the Raw Women's Championship at WrestleMania, I feel like it's a huge waste for them to be in tag teams. Do you feel like it's good that they're even having a tag team match than not being on the show at all? I mean, obviously, I'd rather have them in a pointless tag team title match than not being on the show at all. I mean, that much goes without saying. And I guess I would also rather have them competing for the, again, pointless tag team titles than being in the pointless Battle Royal, the equally pointless Women's WrestleMania Battle Royal. But still, the tag titles mean nothing. It's just been a way to include random people on the fucking shows since they started. The first ever WWE Women's Tag Team title match at WrestleMania back at 35 was a multi-woman match. I'm pretty sure it was a 4-way tag team match with Sasha and Bayley walking in as champions. The Inspiration, the Iconics, whatever, that won the titles. Natalya and Beth, and who was the fourth team? I don't remember. I think there was another team. I don't think it was a triple threat. I'm pretty sure it was a 4-way. Was it the Riot Squad? I have no fucking clue. Either way, that was just a way to get everyone on the card. 36, they only had 2 teams. It was Asuka and Kairi versus Alexa and Nikki, but it's not like the match had any sort of creative direction. They added the match at the last minute without any real build-up whatsoever. 37, it was that tag team turmoil bullshit at night 1, and they did the title match on night 2. No one gave a fuck. It was Natalya and Tamina versus Nia and Shayna. That sounds like what nightmares are made of. And they had a million matches against each other, no less. So, yeah, that was dumb as well. And it looks like this year will be no different. It's going to be better teams this year, but it's like these aren't even teams. Sasha really should be more of a priority. I don't care what people think about her. And you could say what you will, but Rhea Ripley, same thing. I mean, the woman's a talent. And both Rhea and Sasha either walked in or walked out with gold last year in singles matches. To not have anything for them to do, I mean, it's good that we're getting Becky and Bianca. It's good that we're getting Charlotte and Ronda, I guess. But you can't have any other women's matches on these shows that are meaningful that don't have to be contested for a championship. I mean, honestly, when was the last women's match that we got at WrestleMania that wasn't contested for a championship that was meaningful? Like, I know we've had intergender tag team matches. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, like, one-on-one women's rivalries. Like, not the tag team match from 31. That wasn't, no one really cared about that. I'm talking about a meaningful women's program, one-on-one match at Mania that wasn't contested for a championship. I can't think of any. There maybe has been one. I just can't think of any. All the women's matches in recent memory have either been intergender matches, battle royals, tag team title matches, NXT women's title matches, Raw or SmackDown women's championship matches. So I would have had Sasha face someone like, if Tony was still around, that would have been cool. Or Sasha and Naomi one-on-one to make that make sense. Or Rhea and Beth Phoenix. Or Sasha and Lita, if they didn't do Lita versus Becky at Elimination Chamber. There's a lot of different directions they could have gone. They just chose not to. So to me, it feels incredibly lazy. Yes, I would rather have them in that match than not on the show at all. But they really need to do a better job with their women. And they do a pretty good job overall, more often than not, in my opinion. But for when it comes to WrestleMania, they need to do a better job of incorporating more women's matches on the shows that aren't contested for a championship that are actually meaningful. They do that with the men every year. Why not for the women? That is my question. At Reborning and John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, check out his show, Real Honesty with John Ritland. His first question was, so with NXT 2.0 in the books, why is Dolph Ziggler the NXT World Champion? Just why? I saw a lot of varying opinions on Twitter last night when this happened. More positive than anything, surprisingly. I'm going to sound like a hypocrite here. I don't actually mind the idea of Dolph being NXT champion. I have said before, I don't give two fucks about Dolph Ziggler. I have probably said before, I do not want him to win the NXT championship. That sounds like a disaster. But as they watched it last night, and that match was great, by the way. I don't know, man. I just watched it and I think to myself, this is interesting. Like, Breaker could be called up. Ciampa has got to get the fuck out of there. I mean, and the main roster is probably doomed anyway, so he's doomed regardless. But you know what? If this gets Ziggler away from Raw, and it probably won't, he'll probably continue to pull double duty, then I'm kind of okay with it, because it's something different, and the guy's actually good. You know what I mean? It's not like it's Jinder or someone like that who's just fucking abysmal. Like, Dolph is just the epitome of what, like, NXT, I mean, the guy's a great wrestler. But I think when I think Dolph Ziggler, I think of Raw and SmackDown. So he's the anti-NXT superstar, which is why I think the idea of him coming to NXT was so cool in the first place. He won the championship. I know Dolph's a fucking loser from a booking standpoint, but you know what? Maybe they can make this work. Maybe they can make it interesting. It is kind of hysterical, considering that he's done nothing for years now, and all of a sudden he's the NXT champion. But honestly, he may be able to make it work. Like, the guy is good enough where I think it might work. Like, he's a good enough wrestler, and he can work well with a lot of the younger kids there. It gets him, hopefully, the fuck away from Monday Night Raw. Robert Roode can hopefully go back to NXT as well. That was where he was at his best anyway in WWE. I don't really hate it. I don't know if I love it quite yet, but on night one, I'm intrigued. If nothing else, I'm certainly compelled. So I'm curious to see where they go with it. If the idea is to call Breaker up to the main roster, I mean, I guess you could have Braun win the belt back over WrestleMania weekend and do it at Stand and Deliver. I mean, I guess, but I don't know. They could have just done Ziggler and Breaker to begin with, but now it's more interesting with Ziggler as the NXT champion. More people know Dolph, so hopefully it gets more eyes on the product. I've seen people say, fuck it, I'm going to watch NXT now because Dolph is champion just to see what happens. And you know what? Dolph is such a afterthought at this point overall, as far as how he's been positioned in this company. But again, I could think of far worse people that could have been in that spot instead. And yeah, there could have been better people that I would like to see back in NXT. I would have loved to have seen Robert Roode back in that spot, because he had great history as NXT champion. But NXT championship is the one title Dolph, I mean, not the one championship, but it's one of the championships he's never held before. And you know what? Fuck it. It's interesting. So we'll see where it goes. At this point, NXT is such a shit show, and The great things are great. The bad things are awful. That's the biggest problem with NXT, where the good is great and the bad is brutal. With NXT, with Dolph being the champion, just fuck it. You know what? We'll just see what happens. Why the fuck not? You know what I mean? Why the fuck not at this point? It's not like he buried Braun. Braun wasn't even pinned. So, let's see what happens. If Braun gets called up, even better, assuming he gets utilized correctly. And, I don't know if I hate it as much as I thought I would, considering I've been so down on Dolph for years now. I would not say the same thing, by the way, if Natalya came to NXT, for example, and won the NXT Women's Championship. I'd probably be like, what the fuck is this? I know she came to NXT to contend for the championship back in 2014. That was 8 years ago. Dolph at least is a good wrestler, and Natalya's fine too, but Natalya has not had anything resembling an above-average match and probably close to that NXT match in almost a decade. So her coming to NXT would be terrible. Dolph is just, it's such the anti-NXT idea that intrigues me. So I don't know. I probably sound like a hypocrite because I usually fucking dunk on anything Dolph Ziggler does because he's been so played out at this point. But it's something different, if nothing else, and it's not terrible, in my opinion, so I'm willing to give it a chance. His second question, what would you say were the 2 or 3 best and 2 and 3 worst matches of AEW Revolution? There really were no, worst is a subjective thing, the worst matches. I guess the matches I would have taken off the show, I guess, because they weren't bad matches. There really wasn't a bad match in the whole show, which is good. The weakest matches I would have taken off were definitely Jade Cargill and Ty Conti. Now, I thought that was a very good performance from Jade Cargill. I actually left halfway. I left at the beginning of the match to go get food because we arrived at the theater late to watch the show. And I wanted to go during the show to get food, but I didn't know what match to go during. And the first 3 matches were very good, and I'm thinking, fuck, when can I go get food, So we went during Jade and Ty, and by the time I came back, it was over. So I had to go back and rewatch it on Bleacher Report. It was fine. It was a pretty good match and a good performance from both women, but I would have taken that off. The 6-man tag team match from later on was fun, but it didn't need to be on the show, so I probably would have taken that off. I don't really know what else was bad. Everything else was very good to great, so I don't really know. Probably Rosa and Baker. I wouldn't have taken that off, but that was probably among the weaker matches because it just wasn't. It was a good match, but I know they can do better. And it just didn't really have the drama. The fans weren't really into it. It was just kind of there. So that I probably would have taken off too. The best matches, that 6-man from the pre-show is fucking awesome, but that would probably be in the top 3, I guess. I really enjoyed the main event, Adam Cole and Adam Page. I'd probably put that in there. Obviously, Punk and MJF I really enjoyed. And Moxley and Danielson, maybe. I really enjoyed Kingston and Jericho, too, so it's hard to say, man. There were a lot of good matches on that show. Fuck. I don't know. I probably would go main event in no particular order. I think Punk and MJF was probably the best match. I like the ladder match, too, but there were some awkward spots, so I wouldn't put that in the best category. For show stealer matches, I would go main event. I would go Moxley, Danielson, if not Jericho, Kingston in that spot, and then Punk and MJF. It's probably what I would say. Those are my 3 favorite matches from the show. So I like the tag team title match too. The ladder match was fun. Like I said, the 6-man was pretty good. That was fun. The 6-man of the buy-in was awesome. I would definitely include that if we're including that as well. So just a great night of action, a really good pay-per-view overall that I thoroughly enjoyed. John's third question here, is there any logic behind Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan teaming up? At this point, the NXT Women's Tag Team Division is a scrap heap, isn't it? Kind of 2 different questions here, but yeah, the Rhea and Liv Morgan tag team makes absolutely no fucking sense, aside from the fact that it gets them on the WrestleMania card. That is literally it. I think they've teamed before on Raw, cool, but, it's hard to care. It really is. Liv and Rhea are great. I'm glad they're even on the show. To not include them at WrestleMania after the years that they've had would be very egregious. It would be very disappointing, so I'm glad we're at least even getting it. But yeah, it feels lazy. It's incredibly lazy, like I said earlier. As far as the NXT Women's Tag Team Division, that has been pointless from the get-go. It's cool that they're doing a Women's Tag Team Classic like they did with the men, but they don't have enough women's teams to justify. Almost all of the teams in that thing were completely thrown together. All of them. What, were there 8 teams? Yeah, I think there were 8 teams overall, right? So, just a lot of them were just completely fucking pointless. Amari Miller and Lash Legend, Why? Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray, why? Raquel and Cora kind of made it work, and it kind of made sense, but a lot of the other teams were completely thrown together. Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu, why, man? I mean, I guess they're making it work, but the Wendy Chu shit for me, I just don't give a shit about. I think Dakota Kai, she should be in the main roster by now. But the whole division has been a complete waste. Those championships mean nothing. You got Indy and Persia, but they fucking broke them up. You know what I mean? It looks like they've already been broken up. They're having a match. Maybe they end up getting back together by the end of it, but they're having a one-on-one match next week after only teaming for about 4 months. Like, you can't make this shit up. They literally went for the belts a time or two, lost both times, and now they're already being broken up. That's the NXT Women's Tag Team division for you, so that to me just makes absolutely no sense. At Supersonic X 1991 from Twitter, what are your thoughts on the Vince McMahon interview on Pat McAfee's podcast last week? I found it very interesting and very entertaining. Maybe some wrestling fans should give it a listen. I think almost all wrestling fans gave it a listen, whether they liked it or not. I think most people checked it out. I actually really liked it. I didn't really learn a lot that was new. I did learn some new stuff. He came across like an actual human being for once, which was refreshing. The interview obviously had its cons in the fact that, no pun intended, that, with Nick Khan and shit, with Pat not really asking the hard-hitting questions. He did address some stuff, but the guy's his boss. He's a nice guy. He's just not that type of person, so I understand. He kind of gave him softball questions, but you know what? Vince sitting in any setting like that, answering any sort of questions, is cool to me. I wasn't going into it expecting this tell-all interview, although he did get a bit personal with some stuff. I wasn't expecting that going in because I know that wasn't what it was advertised as. Like with the Stone Cold one, I'm expecting, okay, that's what it's going to be because they're saying nothing's off limits. It's all uncensored. Steve Austin doesn't work for them, technically. He might be under a Legends deal, but beyond that, he doesn't work there actively like Pat McAfee does and have this fucking guy in his ear every Friday night on commentary, So Steve could have asked whatever the fuck he wanted, and Steve's a wrestling historian. Not that Pat McAfee's not a fan, because he is, but Steve had far more questions that he knows that we would want to ask. You know what I mean? So... and he probably incorporated some fan questions, fan feedback going into that episode. But, and anyway, I really enjoyed it. Seeing Vince in such a setting was cool. He answered a lot of questions from the people in the studio. It went for a while. It was like almost 90 minutes, which was cool. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just really, really liked it. So I would recommend anyone check it out. Don't go into it expecting this, exclusive... this tell-all interview where he buries people, and I didn't agree with everything he said, like, oh, we got to get rid of the dead weight. Fucking Keith Lee is dead weight. All these other people you got rid of were dead weight. Give me a fucking break. You know what I mean? Like, saying some of the shit that he did was not accurate, but the fact that he was even speaking at all in such a way for so long and broke some news in the process was very cool. So I did thoroughly enjoy it and would recommend anyone check it out. At the Wrestle Guy, and the Brock Lesnar one, by the way, too. The Brock Lesnar one that he did with Pat McAfee a few weeks ago was also awesome. At the Wrestle Guy from Twitter, Sal's last 3 questions here. If Braun Breaker is in fact coming up to the main roster after his championship loss, do you think Seth Rollins would be a good opponent for him at WrestleMania? If WWE can't get Cody Rhodes or can't get him in time, I was thinking Breaker would be a good option. Breaker and Rollins would be cool. The problem is that it's incredibly random. At least with the Cody Rhodes one, yeah, that's random too. I could see people saying, well, how was that not random? Whatever Rollins does at this point is going to be completely impromptu. Owens is officially busy. I thought there was a chance that Owens might not be doing the whole Stone Cold thing, regardless of what it's going to be. And, I was curious, like, oh, maybe they will go with Rollins and Owens again, which I didn't really want to see because we've already seen it a million times, including at WrestleMania 2 years ago. So I really did not want to see that again, and I'm glad we're not getting that. But then everything else with Rollins, like he was supposed to face Shane and that fell through. He could have faced this guy or that guy. Could have been included with Roman and Brock, and they didn't do that either. He got squashed at Elimination Chamber inside the chamber. Bobby Lashley got hurt, so Bobby's not on the card. He can't face Rollins. They're really, at least with Cody Rhodes, you could tell the story if you wanted to. If you have to address AEW in some form or fashion, even without saying the initials. Cody Rhodes has been so pro AEW, Rollins can be like, oh, why the fuck are you here? Like, you created the opposition. And Rollins, for 3 years now, has been the biggest flag bearer for WWE more than anyone, defending WWE at all costs. So you can bring that up too, and he takes offense to Cody Rhodes coming in here and coming to his company after all the shit that he spoke about it. So you could tell that story. I don't know if they would. That, to me, at least makes sense. Cody Rhodes comes in, goes after the top dog. And Cody's already been established within the WWE Universe. Braun Breaker is not. That's the problem. Braun is established in NXT. He only made one Raw appearance. I guess he can come in and beat Rollins and have this huge win. I wouldn't mind that. The problem is that I think, as we discussed on Twitter last night, Sal, that it looks like they're going to be doing Breaker and Ziggler at Stand and Deliver, which they probably should. I mean, Braun wasn't beaten in that triple threat. For Braun to just move on without giving a fuck about the championship, after all he's done in NXT, would be weird. So if he was really leaving NXT, I think that he probably would have gotten pinned, I would have to imagine, unless they really, really, really want to protect him. So, yeah, I just think with the fact that Breaker didn't get pinned, and they didn't do the singles match at Stand and Deliver, or at Roadblock last night, then they will go back to it at, they'll go back to it at Stand and Deliver and have Breaker either get the championship back there or lose to Ziggler. So I don't think it's impossible that Breaker could be called up the night after WrestleMania. I said that on Twitter last night, or at SmackDown after Mania. But still, I feel like with Breaker, I don't know if I would call him up like next week. Like, you literally only have, I think, 3 Raws left until WrestleMania? The Cody Rhodes match, if it's even going to happen, I could see that coming together on such short notice. The Breaker one doesn't really have much of a story behind it, aside from the fact that he's the new guy and wants to go after the top dog. That's really the only story you could tell there, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. It would be better than shoehorning Rollins into Priest and Balor or having him face God knows who, or not even having him on the show, which is also possible, which would be very dumb. So we'll see. Breaker's not a bad option, but I do think Cody would be better. You said if they can't get him, is Breaker a good option? Yeah, he's good. He's probably the better than anyone else I can think of. LA Knight, maybe. LA Knight would be cool, or Breaker. If it's not them, I honestly think there's a chance Rollins may not even be at WrestleMania. Like, seriously, they've had Manias before where big stars were not on the show. Kevin Owens was not at WrestleMania 3 or 4 years ago. What was it, 35, 3 years ago? He was this big baby face. He had literally just contended for the championship at the pay-per-view prior to WrestleMania. And he wasn't even at WrestleMania itself. Charlotte was active last year. She could have appeared at WrestleMania. She did not show up at WrestleMania. I know that was the whole pregnancy thing, and they thought she was pregnant and she wasn't, and whatever. They could have put her at WrestleMania. They didn't. So, they've had big stars be left out of WrestleMania in the past. Undertaker, another one. He could have appeared at WrestleMania 35, and they didn't have him on the show. So it's not impossible for Rollins to not appear. I just wouldn't do that, and they need to fill out 2 nights of Mania. So having him face a Breaker or an LA Knight, in my opinion, if it's not Cody Rhodes and Cody Rhodes can't come in time, I think that'd be just as fine. His second question, even though he lost to CM Punk, do you think MJF should get a title match at Double or Nothing? The guy was gold in the CM Punk program. It seems like we will move on to MJF versus Wardlow, though. Just can't help but think that the belt should be on MJF this year. It is his time. I said this earlier, but I agree. I really would put the belt on MJF at Double or Nothing. I would have him go for it and win it. Like you said, it seems like we're headed in the direction of MJF versus Wardlow, which is fine, and I'm hyped for Wardlow's inevitable babyface turn. Who do you have win, though? Do you have Wardlow beat MJF and MJF loses again? The MJF, for all the, for how well he's been booked, hasn't really won on pay-per-view that much. I think a lot of people forget that. I don't remember what he did at All Out in 2019. Full Gear? Was he even at Full Gear? I don't even remember. I don't think he wrestled at Full Gear. He beat Cody Rhodes at Revolution, beat Jungle Boy at Double or Nothing, but he lost to Jon Moxley at All Out. Beat Jericho at Full Gear in 2020, but went on to lose at Revolution. He lost to Double or Nothing. He lost at All Out. Full Gear, he beat Darby Allin, but now he just lost to CM Punk. I feel like the guy should be winning on pay-per-view more if he's this big star, and he is. He should not be losing as often as he does on pay-per-view. His pay-per-view record should not be as weak as it is. He's probably lost more matches on pay-per-view than he's won at this point. That's not good. Not that people really pay attention to that, but I think it matters. So anyway, I would have MJF win the championship. You can always build them up with wins between now and then. People have lost before and then gone on to contend for the championship at the next pay-per-view. They've done that before. Like Britt Baker, for example. I know the loss didn't count, but she lost to Thunder Rosa in March, scored up enough victories between March and May to be able to contend for the title at Double or Nothing and win it. So I think MJF could be no different, but it seems like they're going to direct his attention towards Wardlow for the foreseeable future instead. Either way, I would give him the belt this year. I know you could say, wait until next year. He could take it from Punk or whoever. He's ready now, though. Like, I was fine with not putting the championship on him at 2020. When he went for the belt at All Out 2020, I get it. You didn't need to put the belt on him at that point. It's 2022. You can put the fucking belt on him this year. You really shouldn't wait. He's as hot as he's going to be right now. He probably could be hotter in 6 months. I get it. There's no reason to wait. The guy should be the one to get the maximum amount of heat from ending Adam Page's title reign. That's a fact. So hopefully it happens. I don't see it happening at this point. I guess we'll find out more tonight on Dynamite. If he comes out and says, I want the championship, I mean, then again, I guess he said that after beating Darby Allin and he went after Punk instead. But I don't know, man. I would really have him be the one to beat Page for the championship at Double or Nothing, like you said. Last question also from Sal. If WWE can get The Rock in some capacity at WrestleMania, do you think the best use for him is to interrupt Roman Reigns' celebration, assuming he beats Brock Lesnar? And Brock Lesnar has got to lose. I mean, Brock being a dual champion, by the way, is just ridiculous. But back to his question. Similar to how John Cena and Brock Lesnar had interrupted Roman, thus teasing a match between the two at WrestleMania 39. Yeah, like I said, man, it's Brock cannot win. Brock cannot win. I know it's unpredictable. There's a chance he could win. And I've said this a million times before, but WWE's incompetence as far as like doing the right thing actually benefits their booking in the way that it makes it more unpredictable. Because we don't know if they're going to put the belt on Brock, and they could. And the guy's already a fucking 10-time world champion, doesn't need to be an 11-time champion, and I don't think Roman's reign should end at the hands of Brock Lesnar. That's just my opinion. I think a lot of people would agree with that. If we're going to have one champion, even if it's not one champion, Brock should not be champion again for an extended period of time. And Cowboy Brock is awesome. Does not need to be champion for 6 months if he's not going to be in the show every week, which I don't think he will be coming out of WrestleMania. He has been on TV a lot since he came back in August, but that's because they have a long-term story being told with him and Roman. Once that story is over, I doubt we will see him again until SummerSlam season at the earliest. I might be wrong, or maybe Money in the Bank, but I would assume we'll probably not see him again until August at least, if not late July. So, with that being said, Roman's got to win. And that being said, do you have WrestleMania close out 2 years in a row, night two, both years, close out with a heel Roman Reigns win? No, I don't think you do. I didn't think they would do it last year, and they did, which was refreshing. I wouldn't do it this year either. And Roman should win, but they got to do something to make people, like, send the crowd home happy. Like, Roman winning would be cool, and I wouldn't be disappointed or, like, upset or anything, because he should be winning. But, like, they need to end the show with a happy note and send the crowd home happy type of thing. And I think the only way you can do that is by having The Rock come out. I really don't know what else you do. I don't know anyone else that could come out and interrupt Roman Reigns that would end the night on a positive note. You could say Cody Rhodes, I guess. I just really don't see that happening. I mean, Cody Rhodes, I've always said, can be a world champion. I just don't see them pushing him at that level if he even goes there. I don't see them bringing him in from night one in the main event of Mania interrupting Roman Reigns. I just don't. Especially if they're going to do it in the next pay-per-view and Roman's going to win anyway. I wouldn't do that. That feels more like a night after WrestleMania thing anyway. The Rock is the only person I would go with. They're going to have almost 100,000 people in there. The place would go fucking nuts. We haven't seen The Rock in WWE since 2019. Before that, you'd have to go all the way back to his last match at WrestleMania 32 in 2016 in that same venue, when he, teamed up with Cena, and not an impromptu match, but like he laid out the Wyatt family, beat Eric Rowan in 6 seconds. So I would have him come out at the end of WrestleMania. The only problem is, like you said, they would have to tease a match between the two for WrestleMania 39 or some point. They have to know the match is going to happen. You can't have The Rock come out, interrupt Roman Reigns, do the big face-off that people have been waiting years for. I mean, I've been calling for Rock and Roman as a match literally since like 2014, and we have yet to get it. And I don't know if we will, but if you're going to tease that, then you need to at least do the match. Have an idea of when it's going to happen. Rock is so fucking busy that it's impossible to know if he's going to be busy a year from now or in 6 months for SummerSlam or this or that. That's the problem, is that they don't know if they can get The Rock for WrestleMania next year. So why would you set up a match that's not going to happen? And that's why when Rock didn't show up at Survivor Series, I wasn't like upset. I mean, I was a little disappointed, but they never advertised him for one thing. And as a second thing, they were never going to do the match at Mania. It was pretty well known at that point. Rock was going to be busy. He would not be around for WrestleMania season. So why the fuck would he come out and interrupt Roman Reigns and confront Roman if they weren't going to do the match right away, like at WrestleMania or at the Rumble or something, which they weren't going to. So then why even tease it? That's the problem. If they know they're going to be able to do the match at 39 or at some point between 38 and 39, then yes, do it. And I think that would be the only way to close out the show. that would send people home happy. Cody is a close consolation prize. One, I don't see them doing that. And two, he's not The Rock. I mean, people may be watching Mania that are casual fans that are like, is that Stardust? Like, we haven't seen Cody Rhodes in a couple of years. That may not even get it. I mean, Mania is mostly hardcore fans, so you probably wouldn't have that issue. It would be an awesome moment. I think Rock is a bigger deal. It's a bigger name. It's a bigger moment, a bigger pop. It's got to be Rock. Cody would be close. Beyond them, who? I don't see anyone from NXT showing up at the end of WrestleMania and attacking Roman Reigns or confronting Roman Reigns. John Cena's already done it. Taker's retired. Triple H ain't coming back. Goldberg, been there, done that. Brock, he's beating. There's not even any part-timers that can come out. Edge, been there, done that. We've already seen there's no Money in the Bank cash-in. We have seen everyone that could face Roman already face him and lose for the most part, except for The Rock. Unless Stone Cold comes out, which I don't think he would, they're doing the thing with him and Owens on night 1. Could he come out on night 2 and confront Roman? I mean, I guess, but that's not really a match I want to see anyway, because I feel like Stone Cold can't go for like a 20-minute match. Maybe for a 2-minute match with Owens, but not like a full-blown classic, which I don't think is going to happen anyway. So, to me, it's Rock or bust. Roman's got to win either way, but I feel like if you don't have The Rock come out, a lot of people will be disappointed. If they don't advertise him, then it's not a big deal. But I just feel like that's the only appropriate way to end WrestleMania. After 2 years of closing with 2 heel wins, I feel like you can't do that again. Have Roman win, but have some big name come out. And if not The Rock, Cody would be fine, but The Rock would be ideal. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 432 here today for #AskGSM, Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in your questions. I appreciate it. If you want to send in questions, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Be sure to check out my interview, as I said earlier, with NFL Hall of Famer and former Rams player, star of American Underdog, and the co-founder of Orange Comet, Kurt Warner. Spoke to him last week or a week or two ago. The interview went up in video form on Monday. So if you're a football fan, we talk all about his NFL locker room virtual NFT experience. We get more details on that in our interview that dropped on Monday in an article form on Bleacher Report last week. More interviews to come in the weeks to come as well, so keep an eye out for those. And I appreciate you guys. Keep enjoying WrestleMania season. I enjoyed Revolution on Sunday. I'm looking forward to Dynamite tonight. Raw was good on Monday. I'm looking forward to WrestleMania regardless of how up in the air the card is at the moment. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on right now. So again, guys, appreciate your support. Be sure to hit that bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up on this channel. Have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.